Yuki, welcome to the live. I saw you in Teacher Yahweh's live yesterday. Thank you so much for joining the live. Is there anything in particular that you would like to go through today, or anything you'd like to ask today? Could you join them?
Yeah, hold on. Right. Let me go live on Facebook first.
It's okay. Alright. Hi Sharon. Alright, so everyone, today, as you guys can see over here, we have the previous composition that we went through. So what I really want to do is I heard from quite a lot of students that they're having like some practice exams coming up or something, and I think it's quite important for students to secure not just good vocab but good strategy when it comes to structuring and starting and ending your story. Okay, your composition. Okay, so for that, I think it is very important to practice writing introductions and very important to start writing endings. Okay. Now, but the thing with practice is not just repeatedly doing something. Okay, if you're repeatedly doing something and something's going wrong, you just keep getting bad grades and you won't know. Okay, you just keep making things worse for yourself. So with practice, I think what's really important is also get it reviewed. So over here, what I like to offer is that students, I will be writing another introduction that is different from the compositions we go through on the spot, and students can do the same, and they can type it in the comments, and I will review it with them. Okay, we will do the same for endings. Okay, so we went through a lot of compositions previously, and I just want to look back at all of them, well, as much as we can today. We'll go through a bit of vocab so that students can have a bit of like a recall session. Go through the vocab, and then after that we go through the composition, and after that we will write an introduction and ending each for them. Okay, and then we can see how that goes. Okay, so thank you so much for the likes, Yuki. We are already at 562. Wow, thank you, Yuki. Okay, so one of the earlier compositions that we went through was called burglars. I don't know how many of you guys remember this composition. Okay, we're just gonna read through it very, very quickly. I'm not gonna annotate. As you guys can see, there's a bunch of annotations on it. We have already gone through this, so we're just gonna speak about it as quickly as possible, and then just go right into the introduction. Okay? Burglars. Everyone must be. Wait, can everyone hear me? I just realized, can everyone hear me properly? Wait, give me a sec. I realize that you guys can probably not hear me. Can everyone hear me better? Yeah? You can't hear me? Can you hear me better now? Sorry, I forgot the mics. Without mics means that you guys cannot hear me. Yuki, can you hear me better now? Hello, hello. Alright, let's continue. Yeah, I can hear you. That's great. Thank you, Yuki. Everyone must be in deep slumber now, as the coolness of the night was ideal for sleeping. Can I get the PDF of this from anywhere? The words are too small on the screen. Okay, I will zoom in. But let me ask them. Let me ask is it possible for them to get the PDFs for this anywhere?
No, so the best thing they can do is to go through with you and get screenshots.
Okay, yeah. So unfortunately, we don't really share these PDFs because it is quite exclusive to all senders. So I will zoom in as much as I can. Do let me know if this is better for you. But thank you so much for the comment, Floor. Yeah. Alright, so let me continue. Everyone must be in deep slumber now, as the coolness of the night was ideal for sleeping. However, Perry tossed and turned in his bed, unable to sleep. Outside his window, the
Valerie, do let them know that because these live sessions are recorded, they can always go back to YouTube and go Facebook.
Okay, so the moderator just came in and just wanted me to let everyone know that yes, our sessions are recorded. That means all of this is being recorded, and you guys can go back to them when it comes to YouTube or TikTok, so you guys don't have to let's say you guys want to write down notes, but you guys also want to listen, and then you guys are struggling between the two, okay? You guys can just listen first, write down as many notes as you guys can, take screenshots when you guys need, and finally, when you guys actually want to review these again, you guys can go to YouTube or go to TikTok to take a look again. Okay? Let me just move my bottles out of the way. Okay, where was I? The croaking toad was getting on his nerves. He had enough. Finally, Perry stomped to close the windows. Just as he was reaching for the window, Perry caught a glimpse of movement outside. He squinted his eyes for a moment, adjusting to the dark. Two blurry men, dressed in black from head to toe, were carrying something and loading it into their car boot. The object was long and gigantic, about the size of a human body. Ooh, that's not nice. Finally, realization dawned on him. They were stealing the family's precious gold statue that Mother had bought just yesterday. Unfortunately, the two men looked up and saw Perry. Thank you so much for the likes, full marks for everything. Thank you. Okay. Unfortunately, the two men looked up and saw Perry. They hastily got into their car, preparing to make their escape. Perry was panic-stricken. He ran to his parents' room and started banging on their door hysterically. "We are being robbed!" Perry bellowed with all his might. Without missing a beat, Father sprang into action. His courageous father took his car and gave chase. Mother took Perry into her arms as she dialed for the police. Soon after, the police joined in the chase. After a long, relentless chase, they finally managed to stop the burglars and apprehend them. They turned out to be the two workers that had delivered the gold statue the day before. Perry heaved a sigh of relief when his father came home safe and sound with the precious statue. He had no qualms about giving the police a brief statement of what he had witnessed. Perry beamed with pride when the police complimented him for his prompt reaction. Alright, so we're going through this so much faster than we did the first time. Alright, so now you guys have the composition in mind, okay? So we are going to take a quick look at the vocab just so that you guys know some of the words that you guys can use in your story, okay? We're just going to go through it very quickly. Okay, deep slumber, we know that means to sleep very soundly, okay? Ideal means perfect, tossed and turned, moved around in a relentless manner, usually on the bed. Okay, croaking of toads, and we're getting on his nerves. Okay, you see cacophony, loud and harsh noise made by the toads, and then you have getting on his nerves, which means making him irritable. Stomped, we know that, so you can use it to substitute walked. Especially, not always substitute walk, but when you're trying to illustrate someone that's angry, someone that's frustrated, someone that just wants to get out of there, okay? Caught a glimpse of movements, you saw some signs of activity. Squinted his eyes, narrowed eyes better so as to see better. Blurry men, strong and heavily built men. Realization dawned on him. Came to the conclusion. Hastily means quickly, okay? Synonyms. Make the escape means to run away. Panic-stricken means terrified. Bang on the door hysterically means banging on the door agitatedly. And also, when you say hysterically, you mean that someone is not, they don't really seem to be fully in control. They seem almost, you would say slightly unsound. They look slightly crazy. Maybe they're very agitated. They're very frustrated. Okay, it's a lot of, okay. Bellowed with all his might, shouted as loud as he could, without missing a beat. Continued saying confidently what one is doing or saying. Sprang into action means doing something without delay. Courageous means brave. Gave chase means to chase after someone. And a long, relentless chase means a long, persistent chase, okay? Apprehend means to catch and arrest. And then we have heave, the sign of relief, which is to let out a breath of air due to the feeling of release, okay? So when you're relief that something is finally going your way or something bad has finally ended, you're gonna go, you know, it's like literally heaving a sigh of relief, okay? Okay, to let out a breath of air due to the feeling of release. No qualms, which means no reluctance or hesitance. a brief statement, short report or account, beamed with pride, smart white. So when you say beam, they can say a beam of light. So when you say beamed with pride, someone is essentially glowing with pride, okay? So you smile widely due to satisfaction to one's success. Complimented, praise, prompt reaction, immediate response, okay? So we have all these now, okay? Okay, so let's begin with our introduction, okay, guys? For those who have been waiting for it. Okay, we're gonna write this at the top so you guys can, what do you call that? Refer to the pre-existing introduction. Okay, let's erase this. Floor, can you see better now? Okay. Okay, so now I went through this before. We have a few different types of introductions. One being an overview. When you're saying an overview of what's going on, you can briefly highlight the main events that are going on, okay? But now you don't want to give away too much, okay? So you don't really take away that much of the suspense away, because suspense is also a very effective way of engaging your readers. So the engagement is actually quite important. Hi, Mariah! My phone is at 2%. Oh, wow. Sounds like me. I never charge my phone till it's at 2%, 10%, or it's already out of battery. And I don't care. Oh, well, I hope you charge your phone so you can stay in this life. But yeah, so, what was I saying? All right, different types of introductions. One is overview. When you're saying overview, you're talking, you don't want to give too much away because suspense does engage. Oh, I said this before. Well, engagement with your readers does help because your teacher will feel like you know effective language. It reflects effective language, and effective language, it will definitely do something for your language marks. Yeah, so definitely you guys can try this. Option one is overview. Let me just write that down. Overview, kind of introduction. Two, you can do a flashback. Now with flashback. With flashbacks, you can say that the person's in a current state of something. Say, probably walking down a familiar path, a path where this exact thing happened. You can say, hypothetically, Jack is walking down a path. As Jack walked down the same path he had for 20 years, he couldn't help but remember that one specific incident on this path that changed his life. So now that's the sort of a flashback, okay? Then you can have a bit of a preview of lesson learned, okay? Now, when you say a preview of lesson learned, we have went through one of the composition of a preview of a lesson learned, but one of the things about it that I really want to warn students is that please do not give too much away, okay? Now, why do I say that? Because when you're talking about a composition that is focused on a lesson learned, you will be doing an ending, likely be doing an ending that rounds up the story and say, after this incident, this is the lesson I've learned. Now, if you're already going to talk about the lesson you've learned at the end and the specifics of what you've learned and everything, there's no point in talking about it at the beginning, okay? And at that point, it's repetitive, okay? The teacher's going to feel like, oh, you don't know how to actually, you don't have any content for your introduction, okay? Now, we don't want that. You can, what I always suggest is that you can give a little away, saying that, let's say, Jack learned the importance of treating others the way you would want to be treated. And then around the lines of that. But then in your ending, you'd be more specific. Jack realized the true impact of his actions on other people, and the importance of treating, and the importance of being the person you would like someone else to be to you. So something like that. So you are not directly saying the same thing. You're being more specific at the end, okay? You want to have that variety, okay? Then number 4, I know there are a lot of different ways to start introductions. Definitely, you can even start proverbs, which is essentially what a lesson learned, but in a more a line that is actually well known. Like, let's say, treat people the way you want to be treated, and you open and you write it like this, okay? You write it like this. And of course, we have number 5, which is one of the most popular ways of starting a composition, which is description. Okay, so you're describing the scene. What am I doing? Oh my goodness. Description. Okay, which is starting the scene. So you want to describe where this is all taking place. You're describing maybe a boisterous canteen. You're describing a very sunny day. Okay, those are all good ways. Class 10. Good afternoon, class. Hi, XNG. Hey there, how was your day going today? Today is a Sunday, and so I'm very tired. I'm not a weekend person. I'm not. For some reason, I feel different during the weekends. I feel more tired during the weekends. I don't know if any of you feel that way. But anyways, yeah, when it comes to descriptions, please be very careful not to describe something that is irrelevant. I've talked about this before. First time I see you live on Sunday. Yes, I think it's one of the first times I'm live on Sundays, okay? Yeah. So I think usually we have other teachers that are live on Sundays. But today is something special. That's why I'm on live. Alright, what was I saying? Alright, description. Descriptions don't describe, let's say if you're writing a story about you in a classroom or you in a canteen, please don't describe the sun. The sun has no part to play in your composition, okay? It might be easier to describe the outdoors. Definitely, I personally found it easier to describe the outdoors because you can describe the weather, you can describe the sun, but also it's important to stick to relevance. If you're gonna be indoors the entire day, sun's not gonna play any part in your composition, okay? And when you with your introductions, don't try to make it seem like the sun is gonna over description, okay? Over description, you don't want people to think that that is the main part of your story. You're not writing a composition about the sun, okay? So be careful about that. Today, how many lives for today? I will let the moderator answer you, alright? I'm not quite sure myself, alright? I just know that I'm doing it. Okay. Right, so let's begin. We already have these five options right now, okay? And we already know what composition this is going to be on. This composition, for those who just joined, this composition is on, as the title says, a robbery. So, yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing the live. Oh, who shared the live? Thank you so much for sharing the live. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, we appreciate it. All right. So this composition is about burglary. So it's also, we can start it with proverb saying that it's very important, something along the lines that it's important to keep everyone safe. It's important to have good relationships with your neighbors, good relationship, anyone that can help you, okay? Or we could just do a description, okay? We're just gonna do a description the same. Okay? Everyone, this is the given introduction. Everyone must be in deep slumber now that the coolness of the air was ideal for sleeping. However, Perry tossed and turned in his bed, unable to sleep. Outside his window, my throat is so dry. Okay. Thank you, XNG. A cacophony of croaking toads was getting on his nerves. He finally had enough. Finally, Perry stomped to close the windows, okay? So now I'm going to start... Oh, my goodness. I'm going to start with a description because students really love to do that. So I think it's very important to... and descriptions is one of the most conventional and easy ways to start a composition. So I think it is worth it to perfect this skill, okay? Now everyone can start writing the descriptions and then we'll go through it in 2 minutes, alright?
Okay, I hope everyone's writing their introductions. Please submit them when you guys are done. Alright. Alright, I am done with my paragraph. My handwriting is a bit messy. That is something that I will have to work on. I feel like every single line whenever I tell people that my handwriting is bad, I have to tell them to stare at handwriting, sorry. And they keep comparing my handwriting to Royston's, and it's so funny. They keep like, Teacher Jia, whose handwriting is worse, you or Royston's? I'm like,
Royston's is worse though.
oh my goodness.
Oh my god, these people are very blunt.
Alright, everyone, I'm gonna read my paragraph, and you guys can feel free to just drop your paragraphs in the chat, and then we can all look at them together, alright? Thank you for 1.5k likes, everyone. I just realized. Thank you, everyone. Alright, so I'm gonna read my paragraph, okay? So I wanted to give a bit of foreshadowing because we're gonna be talking about something that is definitely not a pleasant experience. For me, I feel that foreshadowing makes transitioning from your introduction to your main body paragraph easier. So that's something that I always do, okay? Hello, Twinkle. Welcome to the live. Welcome, everyone, to the live. All right, I'm going to read it real quick, okay? The moon shone forebodingly tonight, contrasting the cool air that promised everyone an eventless sleep. Outside his window, there was absolute silence. For some reason tonight, that brought Perry unrest as he tossed and turned in bed, okay? So now this not only gives you that description that the moon shone in a certain way, and there was absolute silence, and there was cool air, okay? There's that description, okay? But at the same time, it is also concise in suggesting that something bad is going to happen despite how everything feels, okay? So then you could directly transition to the part where just as he was reaching for the window, or just as, let's say, thank you so much, Chloe, for the likes, you could, to make it better, you could always write, you could finally add this part, Perry stomped to close the windows, okay? Okay, so you guys could add that, and then after that, transition, okay? Now this is my introduction, okay? XNG did full marks for everything. Yuki and what's her name? Floor? Do you guys want to submit your, and Mariah's phone might be dead though. If you guys would like to, please submit your paragraphs. You could just write a short one. We could just all rate it together. Go through it together, okay? Okay. Now we're going to do the ending, okay? Now for ending, we have gone through this before, that for endings there are a lot of different types. Like I mentioned before, actually at the start of this live, that for endings you can always do a lesson. It's just like this. A lesson, you could do a lesson, okay? You could do a lesson, or you could do a end with a meaningful moment, and with end of flashback, or you could do end with description. Okay, now I feel like ending with description is much less conventional because I rarely see students that do it effectively. Okay, um, so I think one way that we could do it is that definitely with you could you could merge it a bit with the idea of a meaningful moment. Okay, you could say you could describe the road on as, let's say, linking back to the first example I made. Jack has walked down this road for 20 years, and today as he walks down the road again, he's reminded of that one event that changed his life. Okay, so when you're rounding off that story, you could probably say Jack realized, as Jack continued down the path, and then you could describe the birds, the sky, everything. All this gathered to help Jack realize certain thing again. So he's reviewing the entire thing again. Okay, so you always have to link back to the beginning. It's a good way. Linking back to the beginning is definitely a good way to start to end your composition. Okay, now see, we are looking at the current ending. It says, after a long relentless chase, they finally. So when you're talking about after a long relentless chase, it's a direct transition from action all the way to an ending. So they're closing it off by talking about what happened in the end. Okay, so it's more event based. Okay, they finally managed to stop the burglars. Okay, see, we have that here. They turned out to be the two workers that had delivered the ghost statue the day before. Perry heaved a sigh of relief when his father came home safe and sound with their precious statue. He had no qualms about giving the police a brief statement to what he had witnessed, of what he had witnessed. Perry beamed with pride when the police complimented him for his prompt reaction. Okay, so we also have this. Okay, we're gonna add that. We're gonna transition out from action. Okay, so it's a direct transition out. Okay, and then which one do you guys want to try today? Which ending would you guys like to try? Any that you guys would like to use in your next composition? Any that you guys struggle to use when your teacher asks you to use? Please list it down below, even if it's not one of the 5 I've written over here. That's fine. Okay, so I'm gonna just write one now, but if there's any specific type of ending or introduction that you would like me to go through, feel free to just drop it in the comments, and then we can see what we can help you with, and everyone else can discuss it together. Okay, we want that kind of community here. Okay, guys. Okay, I'm gonna write it as a lesson. Okay, but now when you're writing a lesson, that's providedly that the action has ended in the main paragraph. Okay, see, if you're saying that, you can't simply just scrap this entire thing and end off with, mother took Perry in her arms as she dialed for the police soon after the police joined the chase, and then you hit the composition with the lesson. Okay, you can't do that, because then what happens after? The readers will be so confused. Okay, it's very important not to end abruptly. Okay, the readers can be so confused. They're gonna be like, oh, so did the police catch the person? Or did they eventually lose the people? Okay, now these are things that you have to answer. Okay, before or during your ending. Okay, so we're gonna do with a lesson. Okay, lesson's one of the more conventional ones. Not conventional, more heavily used endings. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna say it. Okay, now this is assuming that this is in this paragraph. Okay. Hi, Pixie Mama. Hi, BB. Hi, So. See a lot of people joining. Please stay with us. We are writing an ending for our composition. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys an update of what I've been writing. So it's a bit long, but we can definitely cut it down. I wrote, still anxious from that unexpected event, Harry could not help but sink into a seat the moment the police left. Okay, so that's a bit of detail that we could definitely remove here, depending or adapt depending on your composition. Okay, but definitely links, transitions your ending to your main body to your ending. Okay. Sighing, Perry could not help but realize the importance of remaining calm during times of stress, as his mind raced through endless possibilities of what could have happened if he had spooked the robbers earlier, or if his father had hesitated, not knowing what to do. Okay. Hi everyone. I see a lot of people joining suddenly. All right. So definitely we can make it more concise. Okay. Over here we can. How would we end this off? Okay. I'm writing this on the spot, so I have to think as well. If anyone has any answers or that their paragraph that they've written, please put it down in the comments, and then we can all look at it together. Okay, so now I ended it off when I said that, okay, this is an event I'm going to remember for quite a while, he thought to himself as he tucked himself back into bed. Now the moon shone brightly, promising him peace as he drifted back into a sound sleep. Okay, so now you're rounding that back off to the beginning where he couldn't sleep, okay? So now that's a bit of an ending, of a meaningful ending. I know that this paragraph is a bit long, but I wanted to incorporate as many of these other endings as possible so you guys could also take a look as how it would look like, okay? Because if we were to go through each and every one of these endings, then we won't have time for the others, okay? But do take a look. I know it's a bit messy, but at least you guys understand what I'm trying to teach. And over here we've done lesson and with a meaningful ending and a bit of a description, okay? Okay, so I hope this works for you guys. Okay, now let's take a look at another composition. XNG, are you still here? I see you in chat, but I don't see you typing anything. Hi, KJ. Okay, we're gonna do another one, okay? Another one. I think we should have time for another one. Okay, now this is called giving up seat. Okay, we're gonna read through this really, really quickly and then jump right into the introductions, okay? So we need to have a bit of a grasp of what the story is about in order to write it. Okay. The bus was bursting at its seams, and the stench of human perspiration streamed through the entire confines of the vehicle. The blazing heat of the midday sun invaded the bus and rendered the air conditioner in the bus redundant. George fidgeted uncomfortably in his seat as the obese man beside him could barely be contained in his seat. At the same time, George was trying his best to breathe without his face, betraying his disgust with the still air around him. Doors closing, the sign of the exit started flashing. A heavily pregnant woman inched her way precariously into the bus just moments before the doors closed. George immediately nudged his way out of his seat for the lady. However, before the lady could thank George for his chivalry, for giving up his seats, the same rotund man moved his back into the empty seat. "Hey, I gave the seat up for the pregnant lady," George boomed indignantly. The obnoxious and corpulent man feigned ignorance and did not budge. "It's all right. Thank you very much for giving up your seat just now," the lady spoke gently. With all appalled stares in the bus turned upon him, the man still remained nonchalant. Feeling the righteousness rising in him, George huffily stormed straight for the driver. The bus came to a sudden halt. George returned to the bus with the bus driver in tow. "Please remove your bag, sir. This is a seat for passengers," the bus driver said gravely. Tension rose in the stationary bus with the driver's remarks. Mortified with embarrassment, the inconsiderate obese man removed his bags to let the pregnant lady sit down as he alighted hastily at the next stop. George was immensely proud of himself for a good deed done. Okay, now, very quickly, does anyone know what kind of ending was used over here? Hi, North CSG. What are you doing here? XNG, Mariah, hopefully, anyone. Does anyone know what this ending is? It is one that we went through previously. I see everyone is probably very sleepy and unenergetic because it's a Sunday. Is that why? Is that why? Okay, we're gonna go through it and hopefully someone joins the chat, okay? When you're saying the bus came to a sudden halt, and this is already a giveaway, okay? Oh my goodness. Okay, it's a giveaway that this is a transition out from action, okay? So we already know that it's also one of the better ways to one of the more natural ways that you can start with if you're struggling to write an ending that seems appropriate. Okay, sometimes students might I know for a fact that there was this period of time that I felt like my endings sounded really abrupt, so it seemed like I kind of jumped from the main body to the ending, and it did not make any sense. Okay, now if you're struggling with that, this is a very good place to start from, because you are directly transitioning out from the action and ending your composition there and there. Okay, so that's one of the better ways to start if you are struggling. But when you slowly get better, you can start experimenting with ending with um, acknowledging a lesson learned or a description. Okay, so you can definitely try all that. Okay, now this time we're going to start from the ending. Okay, so we have transition from action, and we also have description. Okay, we have this description. Okay, and there are other three more. Okay, but this time I want to focus on description, ending with a description. Okay, that's why I'm writing the description down. Okay, so usually in that case I would write a shorter one, and probably would end it here. Okay, okay, so this is what I wrote. I wrote it slightly shorter because we would split this into another paragraph. Okay, I wrote it as a description of his feelings. Okay, George beamed with pride as he watched the pregnant lady settle into the seat. In that moment, the blazing heat of the sun could do him no harm as he enjoyed the rest of the bus ride on cloud nine. Okay, so with that, you're ending it off in a way that you're describing his feelings, and also you're using you're linking back to the blazing sun that affected him so much and everyone else in the bus at the start. Okay, so you're making it a very well-rounded not well-rounded a very the story has a connected beginning and an end. Okay, it is there's a sense of satisfaction when you finish reading that story. Okay, all the points have been met. Okay, now we're gonna go to this the introduction. Okay, now our introduction here is a bit of is a description as well. The bus was bursting at its seams, and the stench of human perspiration streamed throughout the entire confines of the vehicle. Okay, so you would be talking about how nasty this entire scene was. Okay, especially for George. Okay, an alternative way. What alternative ways do you guys think is a good way to start? Let's see. Hi, Cecilia. Hi, welcome to the live. Hi, Rosie. Welcome to the live. Do join us as we're going through so the methods of writing introductions and endings today. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the live. All right, let's just go through it real quick. I think everyone's pretty tired today. All right. So, I feel like there is a bit of a lesson here, but it's not that prominent. Okay, let's go back to the previous one so you guys can see. Okay, we have flashback, preview of lesson learned, okay, or proverbs, or a description, okay. We could also do an overview, okay. Okay, I'm just gonna do it as an overview. Okay, but we don't want to overwrite too much so that it gives away too much and there's no sense of foreshadowing. Not no sense of foreshadowing. There's no sense of suspense. The teacher already knows what's gonna happen. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys an update. I wrote so far. George would have never have thought that this day would be anything out of the ordinary. With his school bag on, he thought it was just a regular day home from school. He would never have thought he would meet someone so obnoxious. Okay, that's where I am. I'm gonna continue. Hi, Hocha Latte. Okay, so I ended off with, he would never have thought he would meet someone so obnoxious that would make his blood boil. Okay, so that would be my introduction. There's that bit of foreshadowing, and also that overview that that is something that would happen. Okay, but it doesn't give away the specifics of what will happen. And if you're starting with something like that, you can go directly to the action. You could say that that day, you can take away the midday sun. You can take away all this about what do you call that? You can still write about the stench of human perspiration, but you wouldn't have to write about the blazing heat because that is mostly about an introduction. So you could directly start with this. Okay, so this. And then this, okay? So that would be part of the starting of your main paragraph, okay? And then you would go with all of this, and then you would end off this ending, okay? Hope this works for everyone. XNG left. That's so sad. XNG, what happened? Alright. Then we're gonna go on to our next composition. I'm seeing that everyone seems a bit tired today. Nobody's really submitting any of their composition ideas, and that's okay. It's okay. We can all just you guys can just take a look. You guys can look at it later, and then probably write it down. Okay, but do remember to revise if you guys have any upcoming exams. Okay. Okay. So we have time to do one last composition. Okay, and that should be about it for today. Okay, this was the one, I think I went through this one before. Let's find something that I've not gone through with you guys before. Ah, this one, okay. So this was the one about class party. Okay, so it's more lighthearted. It's less it's unlike the other two that we went through that was very what's the word, action based, very heavy on lesson learning or standing up for justice. Okay, this one is more everyday life. So it's a bunch of students who celebrated for their teacher because she's about to leave the school. Okay, I'll read it really quickly. Okay, surprise party. Penguin calling to Sparrow. The eagle was on the way. The lookout's voice whispered cautiously. The room became as still as a tomb. In a faint distance away, the clickety-clack of heels could be heard down the corridor. There was a moment of pause just outside the door before it was hesitantly pushed open. Surprise! The whole class trumpeted vivaciously. Streamers were popped and confetti sprinkled on the stunned head of the lady standing in the doorway. Shock gave way to comprehension at once when she saw the words, "We'll miss you, Miss Lee," written on the whiteboard. Bright unshed tears welled up in her eyes as she gazed at the eager grinning faces of Class 4B. The class of 4B had specifically arranged for this special going-away party for their beloved form teacher, Miss Lee, who was leaving for further studies. Multicolored balloons formed a vibrant canopy covering the white ceiling, and rows of tables groaned under the weight of scrumptious goodies. Each student had contributed to the food by bringing a different dish for the potluck party. They are sitting in the middle of the array of food. Was the most gargantuan cake that Miss Lee had ever seen. It was made up of 3 different sections spelling out, "We love you." The whole class and Miss Lee tucked into the sumptuous food with glee. When the food was wiped clean, the class lined themselves up in 4 rows and sang a song dedicated to Miss Lee. Candice and Karen then strode towards Mrs. Lee, carrying a huge panel between them. It was a pictorial collage that the class had made of the memorable times that Miss Lee had spent with them in their year together. For the first time in her life, Miss Lee was stunned speechless as waves of emotions flooded through her. This time round, unchecked tears streamed down her porcelain-smooth face as she gave each and every one of the students a tight bear hug. She promised that she would never forget this amazing, thoughtful class of students and would miss them tremendously too. Okay, so it's a very heartwarming composition, okay? Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. introduction. Okay, now introduction with this kind of composition, I like to go in with a description. Okay, I know I keep on talking about descriptions, but we can always do other introductions in other lessons in the next live session. But I do want students to master their descriptions because it is one of the easiest choices. Let's say when you are, at least for me, when I was starting a composition, and it always helped me to. I think it is very important for you to be able to control the amount of descriptions you use, not to overuse them. And this writing an introduction is not only a very easy way to start your story, but it's also a good way to practice that. Okay, so I really do want to go through that with students, and I hope you guys do take away from that. Okay, so okay. So I'm gonna start with this. Actually, no. I'm gonna start. We're describing the party. Okay. Okay. Hi, Skimdim. Skeedum. I'm not pronouncing that right, but that's alright. Had ever experienced, okay? Okay, now I finished writing, and now this is a lot more heavy on description than action. That you guys can say a penguin calling the sparrow. Okay, eagle is on the way. It's also a bit longer, but you guys can definitely cut it down based on the descriptions that you guys are writing. Okay, I wrote that balloons lit the once pale minimalist classroom. Streamers lined the walls, suggesting the most fun the class had ever experienced. Food lined the rows of tables that had been pushed together, such that students all stood googly eye as they salivated unconsciously. Just then, the clickety click of heels took over the silence of the room, just as the door of the classroom was hesitantly pushed open. Okay, and then you would directly go to surprise. The whole class trumpeted vivaciously. Okay, so that is one way to start with description. All right, so you guys can put your comments or your any questions, any answers you guys might have on your own down in the comments. All right, but we'll be going to the ending. Okay.
Valerie, it's time. So you let them know you go through this on your next slide.
Oh, it's
It's already 1:19.
oh,
We're supposed to end at 1:15.
oh, I thought we'd end at 1:30.
We saw the chat.
Oh
Then
no.
we'll end at 1:15.
Okay, guys. Actually, we would go through this the next slide. We're actually going way over time. All right. I will see you guys next session. And I think today's rather quiet. No one's really here. Everyone's having a sleepy Sunday morning. It's alright. I will see you guys next lesson, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one. All right. Bye, everyone.